Alright guys, chapter 2. If you thought things were confusing before, it only gets worse. So, I'm on page 32, so as you're reading through chapter 2, there's several pages of instructions that you have to look at. So first I'm on page 32, and the very first step it says, launch Unity and select the Learning Unity project that we made. Now obviously we didn't make a Learning Unity project, we made a 2D platform game. So again, that's his issue where he was working on one game, then kind of moved to another game. I don't know, but just open up your game. So skip chapter. Other than opening up Unity to where you're at, you're good. All right, and then right-click in the property window. So here in the project window, you want to right-click. So we'll see, he says right-click in the project window and select import package. But do you see if I go? Okay, now I go. If I right-click on the asset folder. So it's really hard to follow his instructions. So right-click on the asset folder, import package, and then do custom package. Now before you do this in the class, make sure you've downloaded the chapter 2 package that's in your Angel folder. So if I go to Angel and I go to, oh I'm sorry, that was right there. There's the Unity Asset Package Chapter 2 Start. So that's how I'll name them. Unity Asset Package Chapter 2 Start, Chapter 3 Start, Chapter 4 Start. You get the idea. So right-click on Assets, Import Package, Custom Package, and then point to that. Now for me, I'm going to my desktop. And Unity 2D Files, Project Files, 2D Start. And then wait. And then it should open up like this. Now, you see that you import another test level into the game, which kind of freaks everything out. But that's the package that you want to import. So he says in chapter 2, install blah, 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 select the, he's saying select the platform, Kenny whatever thing. So is that what he means? Because we already have a Unity test level? So I don't know, if you don't like your Unity test level, you can always download another one. So just do what I did, uncheck scenes and test level, because we already created that, and just have packages and then that Kenny V Unity thing, and then hit import. And then you should get a new folder called packages, and then in there is the Kenny thing. So that says, alright, once Unity has decompressed the package, blah, 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 you'll prompt you for the packages import, click all the button at the bottom left. But if you look at the bottom of that folder, or bottom of page 32, there's a whole bunch of stuff picked there, which is really odd. So that's kind of where it leaves you off, which is very confusing. So what you want to do is you want to go here to the graphics package and then hit open. So make sure that you hit packages, click on that platform package and hit open. Let that decompress, and then those are all the prefabs. These are the assets we need for our game. So it's going to create sprites and it's going to put a whole bunch of stuff in there, so import that. Boom. So now they tell you, like on 6 and 7, it should create the sprite folder. Inside the sprite folder I get a whole bunch of stuff like enemies and HUD and items and the player. So that's what our player is going to look like for this game. So that's all of our art assets. Alright, that takes care of page 32 and 33. So jump into page 34. The first two, it says left click the game object and create the empty object. Then number 2 says make a new game object called player. We're not going to do that because we already did that in the first chapter. And then in the inspector pane under the new player, so we want to click here. So I'm on step 3 on page 34. We want to click on player and then go to the tag manager here and make sure the tag is player. Alright, and then step 4 says we want to go to the layer manager, so go to the layer manager, click that and hit add layer. And then here at layer 8, they want you to name this, and we're just going to name it player. So that'll give our player in the game his own unique level. And then you just go click on the inspector, or you can just go click on player again and that'll go away. So now we need to change that to player, and we're all set. So first you'll go here and hit add layer, and you'll add the player layer. Then you can click on player, and that'll take you back, and then go back to that layer and make sure you change that to player. Alright, and that wraps up page 34 and 35. Alright, now the instructions on page 37. Instruction 1, if not already selected, make sure you have the player game object highlighted, which I already do. And then step 2 is done automatically for us. It says add component sprite renderer. And you can see that the sprite renderer is already there. So anytime you create a sprite, you automatically get the sprite renderer now. So we go on to step 3. We can now create our new sprite asset, blah, blah. In Inspector, click the small target icon to the right of the element. So what they're saying is here in the little box, this is the little checkbox, the little thing that they're telling you to click on, which is kind of hard to see over here on the right. So sprite, and there's nothing there, and you're going to click on that, and then that brings up our sprites. So now there's a lot of sprites here, so what they're telling you to do is the asset tab should already be selected. Just click in that box and then type in, is it P1? Yeah, P1 underscore and then stand, ST, and then he should show up. So that's the sprite that they want you to have. So you just double click that, and now you see P1 stand shows up in that box, and our sprite, if I move the camera or move the guy, woo, there's my little sprite. Alright, so that wraps up page 37. Flipping over to 38, we've now attached our sprite to the game object. We can verify this by seeing it in the sprite renderer. Also, we see our sprite appears on the screen. We've added our first sprite to the game. Hooray! Alright, so that's good. And now at the bottom of page 38 it says, in the project window, click on Assets and Prefab. So I want to go to Asset and then Prefab. So now here they want you to right click and create a new prefab. So create prefab. And then they want you to call this player. So type in player, hit enter. And then so now it says player 1 because we already have a player that came downloaded. So this is where the guy's writing really gets confusing. I mean, why do we have, I've already created player on page 30 or 25, and then I do it on 34, and then when I import the package I get another player, and you can see this one's all set up. Now this one has rigid body and a circle collider, so it gets kind of confusing. So just leave it at player 1. We're really not going to mess with that. But what he has us do is he has us take our player that we've created so far and then drag that to the player 1 box, or the player box, however you want to say it, to create a prefab. And prefabs are nice because I can change anything in the prefab, and anywhere that item is up here in the top, it'll add that in there. So for the player, it's not really a big deal. Other than I can take the prefab now and move it to another game, and all my settings for transform, renderer, and animator, that stuff will all show up. And if you have like a bunch of enemies in the game, you can just go to the enemy prefab and make one change, and it propagates down to all the other enemies. So it's like a master copy that once I make the change, every item underneath that will be changed as well. So just leave that prefab as player 1. Eventually we'll just probably use his player asset, or we'll rebuild player 1 using his instructions, and then eventually there'll be 2 different ones. One will be player 1, will be player 1, and they'll both have the exact same settings. And then whatever one works for you, you can just kind of use it. Alright, now I'm on the bottom of page 39. So it says select the player prefab, which we're going to do player 1. We don't want to mess with any icons or any assets he puts in there. So we go to player 1. So I go to the player, and then he wants us to add an animation component. So not an animator, but an animation. So again, add component, and then miscellaneous, and then animation. So that's step 3. Step 4 just tells you to click on player and make sure the animation shows up now. So I have an animator and an animation box or component. And then he says save the scene. So file, save scene, and file, save project. So that's where you should be at the end of chapter 2. Woo! And aren't you glad I'm walking through this with you, because this book is confusing. I've read this book 4 times and I'm still confused sometimes about how this thing is set up. Some of the problem is by the time you actually write the book and take all the screenshots and do all the work, Unity has progressed a few levels. And then you send it to your editor, and then they have to edit it, and then it goes to publishing, and then they got to print it, then they have to get it to stores, and they have to advertise it, and then we buy it. Now, we do our book orders in April and May for the fall semester. So this book was probably done, well, I don't know when it was published, but you get the idea. So it's really hard to find a book that's actually current and really works with your version of Unity. But we'll just keep working together, and we'll get it through. So again, if you have any questions, make sure you let me know. Other than that, we'll see you in class.